The lifeblood of an NFL offense is the offensive line. It is the driving force, and it is the reason that a lot of teams are able to have continued success over a number of years. Today, we're going to be tier listing those offensive lines across the NFL as they currently stand. A couple disclaimers before we get started. I have 7 categories. We go top dog, the protectors, reinforced walls, average build, leaky walls, rope-a-dope, and then bottom feeders. I am going to only keep one in the top dog and one in the bottom feeder position to keep it consistent with the rest of the series. And just like last week, we're working off of an average of 41.0625 sacks per season. So that will be the average number. So when I'm giving you the numbers of sacks allowed, that's what we're looking at as roughly league average. All right, but without further ado, let's get right into it with the Buffalo Bills. The Bills average, or not average, they gave up 14 sacks last season. Their offensive line is Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, and Brown. That's a really good offensive line. I think I'm going to sort them off in protectors. I don't think that they are as well rounded as people might think. I also think they're a little underrated. Giving up 14 sacks is a really good number. I believe it's best in the league. However, they did have Josh Allen's legs to help with that, and they did not do good with the running game, as James Cook's numbers were just average overall, although we did get to 1,000 yards. So, yeah, okay, I think keeping them there is a good place to start. All right, what do we got? The Dolphins next up, 43 sacks last season. Paul, Daniels, Brewer, Savanea, and Jackson. Okay, so they lost Armstead to retirement. He was a really good left tackle. That changes the look of this. Daniels is a good guard. Brewer's a decent center. Jackson's probably a below average guard. Okay, I'm gonna put them at average. I'm gonna put them at. No, I'm gonna keep them at average. Yeah, I like them at average. I think they might drop down later, but the Paul's unproven as he was the backup last year. Daniels is good, but he's getting older. Brewers is okay, like I said. Savanea, I think he started part of last season, but not the whole thing. And then Austin Jackson is, like I said, just an average at best. Their depth isn't great. So I think I like them at average, especially with their output last year. I do think losing. No, I think I'm gonna put them at leaky walls. I think losing Armstead is going to make a difference for this team, and I think because of that, they fall down just a peg. All right, Patriots. Where are the Patriots? Here they are. Okay, 52 sacks last season. Drafted Will Campbell, Cole Strange, signed Bradbury for center on Waynu, and then signed Morgan Moses. Okay, so I think they're at least average here. Drafting Will Campbell is nice. Signing Morgan Moses is underrated. They did also draft Jared Wilson to potentially be their center, so they have some depth in the interior. I just think after giving up 52 sacks last season, I would feel bad moving them any higher, especially when part of their improvement is rookies. Yeah, so let's keep them at average. I do think they did a good job of improving off of last season. All right, the Jets gave up 40 sacks last season. They had Fashanu, Simpson, Tippmann, Vera Tucker. They drafted Membu. Okay, so they basically replaced Moses with Membu. I believe that's all that's changing. Fashanu still needs to develop a little bit. Tippmann's one of the best centers in the league. Vera Tucker's an above average guard. Simpson's probably an average guard. Okay, so I think because their tackles are so young, I'm going to put them at average build. Their numbers come up at average last season, and Moses was a big help for them at right tackle. So, yeah, okay. I like that. That's the American League East out of the way. Let's move on to the North with the Ravens. Let up 24 sacks last season, although similar to the Bills. Lamar Jackson had a lot to do with that. Ronnie Stanley, Andrew Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, and Rosengarten with no Boom Jones backups. Okay, so I think I'm gonna put them at reinforced walls. I like their depth. I don't love their guards, um, and I don't like that Stanley has injury prone in him. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. I like that there. I think if Emery Jones can step up and take the right tackle spot, that'd be a nice help for them. I think he has a higher ceiling than Rose Garden, but Stanley is an elite left tackle when healthy. Linderbaum is a great center. So I think reinforced walls is a good place to put them. They're also very good in run blocking overall, so that helps as well. Okay, Cincinnati Bengals, 48 sacks last season, which I think is down from the previous years. Orlando Brown, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, or Karras, Cody Ford, and Amarius Mims. They drafted Fairchild to potentially fill in one of those guard spots. Looking at it, I think it would be left guard. Okay, I like him at average, but above the Patriots. That might not be a popular opinion, as I know a lot of people like to bang on the Bengals for their poor offensive line, but I think they did better. Orlando Brown has the potential to be a top tier left tackle, and he has been. Karras is an underrated center. Um, Ford, since moving from tackle to guard, has been good after signing away from the Bills. Mims is young, can develop. Yeah, I like average. I like average there. Okay. Cleveland Browns, 66 sacks. Not a good year. I don't think that they did against the run good either. Okay, where do I want to put them? A lot of sacks means that they're below average. They didn't re-sign Mills to play left tackle. Instead, they're doing Jones. But they have talent. I think Leaky Walls and above the Dolphins. I don't like that they gave up so many sacks last season, but their quarterback play was also horrendous. Maybe I'm just overvaluing Betonio and Teller and Conklin too at that. But I think their guys had some injuries last year too. I don't know. Maybe I am overvaluing them, but I think that I have them below average. I think their talent level is better than that, especially when they have Tevin Jenkins as a backup. But yeah, I guess we'll put them there and move on. Steelers, where are the Steelers? There they are. 49 sacks last season. Jones, Samalu, Frazier, McCormick, and Fotanu. Okay, so young tackles. Frazier's a great young center. McCormick's below average, and Samalu is average at best. Okay. I think I like the. Oh my god. I think I like them here. I think the talent on the Browns is better despite the production not being there. If their tackles can take a step forward, they'd be better, but I mean, you had Justin Fields starting for 5 games, and then you had Russell Wilson, who is older but not exactly immobile back there. You did better. They did better with the run. Yeah, I think I like them there for now. Okay. Houston Texans, 54 sacks last season, and that was with Tunsil. They traded away Tunsil, replacing with Cam Robinson. They still have Howard, Patterson, Scruggs, Fisher. They drafted Emersory, excuse me, Tomlinson, Ingram, Brown. Okay, so they have some depth, but I still don't really like the overall talent of this offensive line. I think they're our first rope-a-dope team. I'd be surprised if they became our bottom feeder, but you gave up 13 sacks more than average, and that's with a great left tackle. and you replace him with Cam Robinson, who was just okay with the Jaguars. Even if I were to say that I liked the interior grouping of Howard, Patterson, and Scruggs, which I don't, um, I think Ursary needs to step up, and I think Ingram probably would be the best guy to step up on the interior there, unless they move Trent Brown inside, which is possible. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I knew when they moved Tunsil they were in trouble with their offensive line, but that does not look good. All right, Colts. 32 sacks last season. Raymond, Nelson, Bertolini, Goncalves, and Smith. Okay, I'm going to put them at reinforced walls. Nelson's an all-pro left guard. Raymond is an underrated left tackle. Braden Smith is a top tier right tackle when he's right. Yeah, I liked him there. 32 sacks. They did good with the run too. Yeah, I think I like that. Their depth isn't great. I would like it to be a little bit better, but I know Richardson was a running quarterback, but he didn't start the entire season. They had a little bit of Joe Flacco mixed in there. So, yeah, I think this is an underrated bunch. Okay, I like what that is. Jaguars. Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, Anton Harrison. Okay. 32 sacks last season is a good number. They did draft Will Millam to potentially fill in some holes. I do think they're fitting here. A little bit better. Let's put them here. I think the Cleveland Browns' perceived talent is carrying them a little bit. I like this line better than the Steelers. They also went through a lot of quarterbacks, and Lawrence isn't exactly known for his legs. So 32 sacks is a good number. They did okay against the run. Depth is pretty good. All right, I think they're slotting in here at Leaky Walls in the middle. Okay. Tennessee Titans. They signed Dan Moore, which is a questionable decision at left tackle. Left guard is Skoronski, who's good. They signed Cushenberry, who's good at center. They signed Kevin Zeitler, good at right guard, and moved Latham to right tackle. Okay. I think I'm going to be bold and put them there at average build. Their numbers aren't great from last season, but they only have, 2 returning players. I think Latham played left tackle last season, not right tackle for them. So technically they only have 1 returning player to the same position. That's Skoronski, who was their best lineman last season. Say what you will about Dan Moore Jr., he's still an upgrade. Moving Latham to the right side will take some pressure off of him. Zeitler was great with the Lions last season and has had a great career. Cushenberry, I believe, was with the Broncos last season. He was a top 10 center. Those are some good additions. I want to see it all gel before pushing them any higher. But it's a better group than the numbers in last year would suggest. Okay. Denver Broncos, 24 sacks last season. Very good number. Bowles, Powers, Wattenberg, Miners, and McGlinchey. Okay. Reinforced walls. I like them better than the Colts, but not as good as the Ravens there. Although, do I? I actually think I'm going to put them at protectors. Miners is like, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he is a top tier guard. Bowles and McGlinchey are both above average tackles. I got to see what Wattenberg does as a center. 24 sacks is good, but their running game was horrendous last season. Now, I think because of that, I have to keep them down here. I'm going to move them above the Ravens, though. I think the interior is the difference there. Yeah, they might be undervaluing them, but they lost a great center. I just don't like their numbers with the running game. Okay, Chiefs. Chiefs are next up. 41 sacks. Jalen Moore, Mike Caliendo, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor, Josh Simmons. They drafted, who will probably end up playing left tackle for them. Okay, so here's where I'm at with the Chiefs. They traded away Tooney, their left guard. They didn't have a great left tackle last season. They still don't have a great left tackle, although Josh Simmons can develop into that. So I think Creed Humphrey, arguably the best center in the league. Trey Smith, arguably the best right guard in the league. And if Jawan Taylor didn't get as many flags for holding those false starts, okay, I'm going to put them here. That might change, but I can't discount what the right side of their offensive line looks like, despite how poor their left side might look. And then, I don't put a lot of stock into what rookies will be, but the potential of Josh Simmons, who before his injury in college was a top 10 pick, is immense and looms large for the Chiefs there. So I will put them, I'll keep them in reinforced walls. All right, Raiders. 50 sacks, Colton Miller, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson, Parham, and DJ Glaze. And they drafted a couple guys as well. Their depth is nice, but I think they didn't do good with the run game last season. How much was that just poor running back play? How much was it just poor offense? 50. I think on merit, they'll go there. I think on talent, they can climb, but I don't like their production from last season. And Powers Johnson is a good young center. Colton Miller is a good left tackle. DJ Glaze, what do you have there? I mean, Charles Grant might take his spot. Parham's a good guard. Meredith is an okay guard on the other side. 50 sacks last season and not much of a running game. I would feel remiss if I moved them any higher. So I think that they just have to slot into leaky walls. Okay. The Los Angeles Chargers, 44 sacks in our last AFC team. Rashawn Slater, Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson, Kai Becton, Joe Alt. Okay. So Andre James, Trey Pipkins, the third backup. So there's some depth. I don't like that they had given up 44 sacks last season, but I believe Slater had some injuries, and they signed Becton in free agency, which is big for them. Moving Johnson inside the center to make way for Bozeman. Okay. I think I'm going to take a jump and put them at the Protectors. They have a little bit of depth as well, with James and Pipkins especially. Alt and Slater are that's arguably the best two tackles tandem in the league. Just because of production, I will keep the Bills ahead of the Chargers, but I think they do become our second team in the Protectors tier here. All right, that is it for the AFC. Let's take a look at what we have so far. Okay. I like the top two. I like these four. I like these four. I stand by the Patriots and the Titans improving. Maybe we move the Dolphins down. Yeah, maybe move the Dolphins down. And then we'll see what the NFC has to bring. Okay. Leading us off with the Cowboys. 38 sacks last season. Guyton Smith, BB, drafted Booker and Steele. Okay. So I think they sit really good interior. Guyton's young, not much in terms of depth. Steele's been good. Okay, I think based on the strength of their interior, I'm going to put them here. I do actually. I'm going to have them climb the Chiefs. I do have some questions at their tackle spots, but they're both young, so they can develop. And then Smith, Beebe, and Booker have the chance to be one of the best interior offensive lines, reminiscent of what they had in the early 2010s with Martin, Fredericks, and I forgot what the other guard was, but they had a great interior offensive line. They seem to be going for the same type of look here, and I think they got it. All right, New York Giants. Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, Schmitz Jr., Van Rotten, Elumar. Okay, so they didn't add much. They drafted Bo. That's about it. They're moving Neal inside. They need Thomas to remain healthy. But they did do good against the run. Okay, so I'm in between average build and leaky walls for the Giants here. I think I'll put them at the top of leaky walls. If Andrew Thomas stays healthy, this changes a lot for this group because his potential, if he's healthy, is like top 5 left tackle, or maybe even just tackle in the game. So, but yeah, I mean, staying healthy is a great thing, but you got to actually do it. And then the rest of their offensive line is just kind of average at best. A lot of guys that they paid, Schmitz they drafted. It'd be nice if Neal could come in and take one of the guard spots. If Bo could be something. But I don't know. We will see what happens, but I like them at leaky walls for now. All right. Philadelphia Eagles, 45 sacks last season. That is more than I would have expected because they did not throw the ball a lot. Mulata, Dickerson, Jurgens, Steen, and Johnson. Okay. So this is potentially the best offensive line in the league. But they did lose Becton to the Chargers. And giving up 45 sacks on one of the least attempts in passes is questionable to me. I know Lane Johnson had some injuries. So do I think they're more talented than the Bills and the Chargers? I think I do. The output for the Bills is just it's I'm thinking of it like this because it's like two different sides of the coin. You have what could be the best run offensive line in the league in the Eagles, and then you have what could be the best pass protection offensive line in the league in the Bills. And then when you come where you meet in the middle and you have the Bills that were probably just an average running game offensive line, and the Eagles that grade out here as just an average pass protecting. Actually, below average by the numbers, not by a lot, but still. I think I value. Yeah, I think I like the Bills better because I value the pass protection more than the running game, despite the fact. Yeah, and then they lost Becton, who's a decent piece of what they do, hired gun for a season. And Steen, to my knowledge, hasn't proven much of anything. So, but even if Kenyon Green fit in there, it's still not. Yeah. Okay, I like that. And I will also say this, the Chargers have the talent to jump both of these teams. I just want to see it. I've seen more of the Eagles and the Bills. Okay, Commanders, 50 sacks last season, but they did add Tunsil, Allegretti, Biads, Costy, and Connolly Jr. Okay, so Wiley is a backup and Brandon Coleman is a backup. Okay, so 50 sacks last season, not good, but they added 2 new tackles. I don't love their left guard, but their center right guard is strong. So I think I'm going to put them at reinforced walls. I like them better here. I like them here. I don't think they climb any higher. But even this seems generous because of how they performed last season. They got good additions, though. So, that's what this is for. They added some pieces. Hopefully they can improve. All right, Chicago Bears. They were terrible last season. Braxton Jones at left tackle. They acquired Tooney. They signed Dahlman. They acquired Jackson. And they keep Darnell Wright. Ryan Bates is a decent backup. Okay, so a lot of additions on the interior. They keep the same tackles. I think because of that, I'll just have them lead the average build. Obviously 68 sacks is not good, but their offense had a lot of issues last season, and they added an entirely new interior to this offensive line. Tooney is a difference maker. Dahlman graded out very well at center last season, and Jonah Jackson was with Ben Johnson with the Lions before signing with the Rams and not having a good showing there. I want to see more from their tackles, but I like the group a lot better than I did last season. All right, Lions up. 33 sacks given up. Taylor Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow, slotting in Ratledge to fill in for Zeitler, and Sewell. Okay. I think I have this as the top dog. Now, getting a little older is Decker. I think Ratledge is going to fit in so well there, but he is just a rookie. They have some okay depth in Mahogany and Skipper. Sewell is arguably the most talented right tackle in the league. Ragnow is arguably the best center in the league. Decker's above every left tackle. Yeah, I stand by this. They had some great rushing numbers last season, and they gave up only 33 sacks despite having a decent number of pass attempts compared to the Eagles. I think overall this group performed the best last season and replaced a good older guard in Zeitler with a young, very athletic guard in Ratledge. That's the only change that you have. Great tackles, great interior. Yeah, I think that's our top dog offensive line. Interesting. Okay. Moving on to the Packers. 22 sacks last season. That's really good. Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Morgan, Tom. Okay. So underrated. I was not expecting them to only have 22 sacks last season. That's really good. So I think they deserve to be up here. I do think they did very good against the run. I do think that they played at their best. Now, Jordan Morgan is a young guard. I think if he can improve, that'll improve the overall line. But I think talent-wise, I don't see knock your socks off talent along this offensive line overall as compared to the other teams. Their numbers are good though. Okay, I think no, because I like the Chargers' talent. I really like the Chargers' talent. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep them there at the end of our protectors tier. Yeah. Okay. Minnesota Vikings, 49 sacks last season, but they didn't have Darisaw, who's a great young left tackle. Drafted Jackson, signed Kelly from the Colts, signed Fries, I believe, as well, and then Brian O'Neill, good right tackle for them. Okay, so they completely redid their offensive line in the interior, and they get Darisaw back. So I think I'm going to put them at reinforced walls. Because they haven't all played together, I'm going to keep them down here. Yeah, the numbers might not have shown it, but being down Darisaw is huge. And then they completely revamped the interior of their offensive line as well. So I like their talent level. I think they could climb potentially next season. We'll see what happens with McCarthy as well. And the offensive line cohesion be a big story for this team. Okay. All right, all good there. Atlanta Falcons, 32 sacks last season, which is really good. Matthews, Bergeron, Newsel, Lindstrom, McGarry, Wilkinson, and Parker's good backups. Okay, this might be. Where do I want to go with this? I am thinking about putting them here. They did lose a center in Dahlman, who was really good, but their rushing numbers stack up. Their pass protection numbers stack up. Yeah, I think I like that. I don't. Lindstrom's a top guard. Bergeron is emerging as an above average guard. Matthews and McGarry, excuse me, is a good tackle tandem. I like them better than Bowles and McGlinchey. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I like them there. All right. Carolina Panthers, 36 sacks last season. That's a good number and it's a little bit surprising. Okay, Icky, Lewis, Corbett, Hunt, Maughton, Christensen, Mays, and Zavala Najima. Okay. I think they're just average. If Icky can step it up a little bit, that'll be a good starting point for them. Maughton's an average to above average right guard, a right tackle, excuse me. Robert Hunt's a good right guard. Damian Lewis is average left guard, and Corbett's an average center. Okay, I do want to slot them above because they did have better stats. I'll put them in the middle here. 36 sacks is nice. Not great, but it's nice. The running game was I think they were above average in the running game as well. Okay. New Orleans Saints drafted Banks to play tackle, Penning moving inside, McCoy, Ruiz, and Fuaga. Okay. The running game was pretty good, a little bit below average in sack numbers. Because you can't really tell what Banks is going to do, they're going to slot them at the top of average builds. I don't feel great about it, but I do like the overall talent of every group in reinforced walls better than them. So I think I have to put them there. Now, if Penning can flip to guard and Banks can be an above average tackle out the gate, that changes a lot for this group. But McCoy, Ruiz, and Fuaga is a decent right side. McCoy's probably a top 5 center. So I think on the strength of that, they'll jump everyone else in average build and be at the top of that class. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wirfs, Bredesen, Barton, Mock, and Godecki. Okay. Just below average in sacks. Wirfs is an all-world left tackle. They have a good right guard, an average left guard, a probably average, maybe a little bit above average right tackle. I think are they also going an average build? Yeah, I think so, which is not what I was expecting from them. But yeah, I will, with respects to Wirfs, I'll put them at the top of average build. There's just not much to inspire top level confidence with this group. I think Wirfs had injuries last year too. So, I mean, Wirfs is the entire offensive line is summed up with Wirfs. Average Bredesen, Barton. Admittedly, I don't know a lot about. Cody Malk is average, above average, depending on how you're looking at it. And Godecki, yeah, I think that's where they slot in. All right. Last division, Arizona Cardinals, 30 sacks last season. That's a good number. Paris Johnson Jr., Evan Brown, Frohold, Adams, Williams with Beecham, Gaines, Newman. Okay. So they ran the ball pretty well. Good sack numbers. I think I'm going to put them at the end here, reinforced walls. I think based off their stats last season and the fact that they didn't lose or add anything of consequence, put them there. Paris Johnson is developing really well, kind of underrated out there in Arizona. Froholt is an above average center. Jordan Williams is probably an average tackle and good depth. Yeah, I like the way that looks. Okay, we got the Rams next, 31 sacks last season. Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Dotson, Havenstein. And their depth is just kind of what it is. Okay. I also think they slot in reinforced walls, but where? No, actually, I think I'm going to put them up here. Alaric Jackson is underrated. Havenstein's been a great right tackle for a while now. Dotson's a good guard. Avila is developing as a good left guard. Yeah, I think I like that. I think similar to the Falcons, this is an underrated group that with Stafford, who is, for all intents and purposes, a statue back there, to put up those numbers and also have the rushing numbers that Kyron Williams had, that is a good look. Okay. San Francisco 49ers, 36 sacks last season. Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Bendel, Pooney, and Capps. Dillard Hennessy, good depth. Okay. Good against the run. Okay, so I think I'm putting them in reinforced walls. But where? I think they end up in the bottom half here. And I think here. A lot of this relies on Williams being able to be what he has been, which is probably the best left tackle of the last 15 years at the age of like 40 years old. Yeah. But I do think he can do it to a point. I think the rest of the offensive line is good enough. Not to pick up his entire slack, but to him not need to be like elite for this group to put it together. All right, I like the way that looks. And then Seahawks, 54 sacks. Charles Cross, Gray Zabel, they drafted. Olamide, Hayes, and Lucas. Okay, I don't love the right side of their offensive line. So I think they're going to go in leaky walls. They are good they are good with the run. Better than the Steelers and the Jaguars. I think they'll slot them in there. Yeah, I like that. Cross and Zabel have the makings of a great left side of the offensive line. Lucas has flashed. Christian Hayes has been decent. So yeah, I think I like how they slot in there. All right, those are all of our teams, and we have not picked a bottom feeder. Okay, so I think I'm going to start this off by moving the Titans down. And then I think, am I going to move the Steelers down? No. I think I'm okay with how crowded the middle here is, because I do think a lot of these offensive lines are just middle of the pack. I don't think we have horrible offensive lines going in. I think injuries play a huge part in the effectiveness of an offensive line. I do think I'm going to move the Texans down to bottom feeder. And I think I like the way that looks. Come at me in the comments if you don't agree with any of these placements. I am more than happy to have a discussion down there. I will say I don't like that I only ended up with 2 teams in the bottom 2 tiers total. But I think even if I were to go back, I'd probably land somewhere similar here, just because, like I said, I think a lot of poor performance lands on injury. And just because a lot of teams don't have depth, it's been really hard for teams to develop offensive lines behind their starters, especially with the limiting of practices in the last 10 years. That teams just don't have depth. So when people get hurt, they start to fall. I mean, you have the Giants immediately fall if Andrew Thomas gets hurt. The Browns had a horrible year last year because of injuries. The Vikings, similar, because Darisaw got hurt. You know, if Ronnie Stanley comes out, what happens with the Ravens is a huge part of the game. But okay, this is our list for offensive linemen. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you made it this far, thank you. If you enjoyed this, you want to see the rest of the series, it'll be on the screen now. And I will see you next week with our pass catching group, receivers and tight ends.